Holy crap. I don't remember the last time I ever did this. Uploading 3 videos in a row, 3 days in a row. But I read this article from Variety and I could not resist because I think that what Liam Neeson is proposing is a fantastic idea. Now, what am I talking about? Liam Neeson gave an interview with People magazine for his new movie Absolution, which is set to hit theaters on November 1st, 2024. Absolution also co-starring, I believe Ron Perlman is in Absolution. Now, I'm pulling this from Variety, not from People magazine. In that interview, he talks about wanting to retire from action movies, saying, quote, "I'm 72. It has to stop at some stage. You can't fool audiences. I don't want Mark Vanzillo to be fighting my fight scenes for me." End quote. When asked when this retirement will happen, he responded, quote, "Maybe the end of next year. I think that's it." End quote. The end of next year is referring to the year 2025, in case if you're watching this in the future. Or hell, if he decides against and says, you know what, I'm going to do action movies until I'm like 80 years old. But I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Let's get a little more into this. And what I'm going to say is that Liam Neeson himself has had a very weird career trajectory. And I'm talking even like pre-Star Wars. He started as a dramatic actor in movies like Schindler's List, Michael Collins, Rob Roy, and Gigs in New York. And Michael Collins and Rob Roy even had action elements to them, but they were more dramas, more akin to movies like to a movie like Braveheart. And then it wasn't until 2008 when he rebranded himself as an action movie star. By the way, which came out, the 2008's Taken came out when he was 56 years old. So yes, Liam Neeson in his mid-50s went from being a dramatic actor to being an action movie star and is now transitioning into comedy with the remake of The Naked Gun, playing Frank Drebin Jr., the son of Frank Drebin, originally played by Leslie Nielsen. By the way, another actor who had a very, very weird career trajectory. Leslie Nielsen originally started as a dramatic actor. Most people forget that he was in the movie Forbidden Planet, which is considered by many, many people to be in the top 50 like best sci-fi movies ever made. And then it was after the success of Airplane back in 1980 when Leslie Nielsen decided to completely pivot and change course of his career to go purely into comedy. And that's when he was in movies like the Naked Gun movies. It actually started as a television show. It started with Police Squad. Started with Naked Gun. Then did Spy Hard. I almost forgot about Spy Hard. Spy Hard's not that great of a movie if you ask me, but again, your opinion might differ. And more recently, I actually remembered him playing the parody of Uncle Ben in a superhero movie with Drake Bell, where instead of Spider-Man, he was the Dragonfly. But anyway, enough about Leslie Nielsen, and getting back to Liam Neeson's announcement to retire. You know, this is a great mindset to have for Liam Neeson. Now, it's already ridiculous that he rebranded himself as an action movie star in his mid-50s, but at least he's coming out and stating the obvious words like, look, I'm 72 years old. I can't keep this going forever. And even the audiences are going to scratch their head and go, what the fuck is this geriatric old guy doing, running around and continuing to take punches, kicks, being thrown off balconies, or jumping fences really, really badly to such a point where they have to make like 14 cuts in 7 seconds in order to show Liam Neeson actually jumping a fence in Taken 3. If you don't believe me, just watch this clip right here. No, folks, that was not a SNL parody. That was actually a 7-second sequence from the movie Taken 3. And getting back to action movie stars, I'm going to tie this back into Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. I said this almost 2 years ago. It didn't matter how good Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny was going to be. You're not getting around the fact that Harrison Ford was an 80-year-old man playing Indiana Jones. I mean, at some point, I'm thinking from like one of these stunts, you know, goddamn, Harrison Ford's gonna break a hip here. I'm surprised that more people haven't been calling out Liam Neeson, where it's like, dude, you're way too old to be doing these action movies like Taken. But I mean, I get it. You know, Taken like really elevated his career. But yeah, does he really want to be the next Harrison Ford, where he's running around at 80 years old? Now, you can have the young body double, have Liam Neeson's face like digitally applied to the body double like they did in Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. They also did the same thing in Fast and Furious 7. I think just called Furious 7, to deal with the death of Paul Walker. They got Paul Walker's brother to stand in, but they digitally added Paul Walker's face on top of his brother's face at the time. You know, do you want to deal with the fact where it's like, look, you're clearly an 80-year-old man running around acting like you're still in like your 30s and 40s? And this is the biggest problem with action movies today, is that there really aren't any younger action stars being made. Okay, Tom Cruise, who is, I think, currently filming Mission Impossible 8, is now in his 60s. Liam Neeson, as we stated, is in his 70s. Jackie Chan is now 70 years old in 2024. I think Jet Li is in his 60s as well. I could be wrong, but I know Jet Li is getting up there in age. Keanu Reeves just turned 60 in 2024. Where's all the young guys? You know, who's going to be the next Jackie Chan? Who's going to be the next Chuck Norris? Who's going to be the next Cynthia Rothrock? Who's going to be the next Jean-Claude Van Damme? They're not making these, you know, younger action stars anymore. Scott Adkins was probably the closest to the next, like, big action star of the 2010s, but most of his movies have only gone direct to video or direct to digital. Same with guys like Iko Uwais. You would think that The Raid would catapult his career, but Iko Uwais is nowhere near the same level as someone like Jackie Chan or Chuck Norris or Jean-Claude Van Damme were at their peak, despite being in The Raid, which arguably was one of the biggest action movies of the 2010s. And I even argue that Tony Jaa should have been way up there in terms of action movie stars. If Ong Bak released in the 1990s, right, when Jackie Chan, Jet Li, when those guys were coming up in the West, if Tony Jaa's Ong Bak, which released in 2005, for those that don't know, again, Ong Bak is considered like one of the best action movies of the 2000s. If Ong Bak released in the 90s, Tony Jaa would be on the same level as Jackie Chan, Chuck Norris, you know, Jackie Chan, Jet Li, Chuck Norris, Jean-Claude Van Damme were at their peak, but he simply wasn't. Most of his movies, once again, some of them did release theatrically like Ong Bak did, but a lot of his movies went direct to video or direct to digital. Tony Jaa didn't have that big of a splash, despite Ong Bak being considered one of the best action movies of the 2000s. So I know I've gone off on quite the tangent. So let's dial this back. In my opinion, I think Liam Neeson is actually one of the smarter action movie stars, in just acknowledging that he's getting too old for the genre, and at some point it's going to be very, very noticeable, and even the audience, that even audiences are going to notice it. Again, he doesn't want to be the next Harrison Ford and start running around playing Indiana Jones as an 80-year-old man swinging from a whip, where it's like, yeah, clearly you're an 80-year-old man acting like you're still in your 30s or 40s. There simply just isn't a market for 70 or 80-year-old action movie stars at this point, and the box office of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny kind of proved that.